In my family, you can't go through the Christmas holidays without Chex Mix, homemade Chex Mix. Nothing like this stuff you buy in the bag at the store. That is just the most god-awful stuff. I just can't believe they sell it. It's terrible. But when you make your own, people can't stop eating it. You've got a mixture of cereal, mostly Chex Mix. Corn Chex, rice Chex. You can use wheat Chex, you can use bran Chex, whatever you can get. I use generic, again, to keep the cost down. Thin pretzels and Cheerios. Again, you can use generic Cheerios. It's a mix of these cereals bathed in butter, margarine, and seasoning salt, and Worcestershire sauce. I originally used to make it with Lowry seasoning salt. I've gotten to the point now where I've changed most of the things to generic, so I just use the generic seasoning salt. Works fine. I also make a variation, which is a hot mix, and I use Frank's hot sauce to spice it up a little bit with some extra pepper and paprika. Oh, did I say nuts? Nuts, nuts, and more nuts. Many nuts as you can buy. Of course, this adds to the cost of the project, so you have to be a little conscious to what you're spending. We started out making this with mixed nuts and got a little bit expensive by the time you get done, so I cut down the amount of mixed nuts, added some cashews in, and party peanuts. I'd rather have a lot of nuts than just a few nuts that are mixed nuts, so we load it up, even if it's just peanuts. One of the biggest issues you're going to deal with is when you make this, if you're making it in a very large quantity like I do, you need some pretty large containers. And as you can see, I started out using half dish pans, and that wasn't enough. I should have started out using whole dish pans. I ended up changing over to full roasting pans, disposable roasting pans. But you could actually make this in a small bin or whatever. You're going to have a lot of mix. The one that I'm making today probably consists of about 4.5 boxes of cereal. With that 4.5 boxes of cereal, we've probably got about 3 pounds of butter and margarine, between a cup and 2 cups of Worcestershire sauce, and a lot of nuts. Peanuts, mixed nuts, cashews. You can make it to your own taste. Everybody likes it a little different, but the basic system is the same. It's not cheap to make. You can make a batch and it can run you $30, $40. But we give them out as gifts to family and friends. Something that a lot of people love, but they don't make it. And they always enjoy getting a little container of homemade Chex Mix. Start by setting up a saucepan on the stove. You're going to melt your butter, mix your Worcestershire. I add some seasoning salt to the original liquid mix. I use about 2/3 margarine to 1/3 butter. You're going to get that all melted and stirred together. I'm going to pour that over our cereal mix. Basically mix up all your cereals and your nuts. Spread them out into bins, roasting pans, dish pans, whatever you've got. You could also throw cereal in a paper bag and mix your sauce mix over the top inside the paper bag and just shake it. That's a really good way to mix it up too. I had a little bit too much to do that. There's not an exact recipe for this. The basic ingredients can be adapted to whatever you like. The quantities of things can be mixed up. If you like more mixed nuts, less peanuts, or vice versa. If you try to keep the cost down, more peanuts, less mixed nuts. This batch I ended up spreading it out into 4 full-size roasting pans, kind of a turkey pan that you'd buy for Thanksgiving. You don't want it too deep. If you get it too deep, the heat won't get down there to dry it out, and you'll get it dried out in the top and still clumpy and wet in the bottom. So the secret to this is to slow roast it in the oven at a low temperature, 275 degrees. It takes a couple hours to bake it, and then it'll be pretty dried. Then you can take it out, let it set on the counter for a couple hours before you package it up. This mix that I made today was about 4 boxes of cereal, and for those 4 boxes of cereal we've got 3 pounds of butter margarine mix. There's 2 pounds of margarine and 1 pound of butter. If you want to really splurge, you can make it all butter. Once you get this spread out in your pans and you add your liquid, you're going to mix it up really good. Mix, 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 mix. You don't want parts of it wet and parts of it with no mix at all. You're going to keep stirring and stirring and stirring. Once you've got it all mixed up, basically put it in the oven, 275 degrees, and you're going to slow bake it. And you're going to take it out about every 15 minutes and you're going to stir it. You've got to do this, otherwise the top will dry out and the bottom won't be dry at all. It'll be all wet. Every time I take it out of the oven and stir it up and mix it good, I also add a little more seasoning salt. I like it very, very well seasoned. Sometimes I add a little bit more Worcestershire sauce. Keep tossing flavor in. You can get too much flavor in this. As I said, when you bake this off, slow bake it. You're going to put it in pans that are about 2 inches thick with the mix. I happen to have double ovens, so it makes it kind of nice, so I can have 2 pans in each oven. You might have to bake it in shifts. You might have to go through and bake one batch and then bake another batch, depending on how big the overall quantity you're trying to get out of this thing is. We give a lot of these as gifts, so we make quite a bit of it. The key is getting it well mixed. If you find that stirring it is a little more difficult than you like, you can basically pour it back and forth from one big pan to another big pan. Just go back and forth and back and forth, and it'll mix up really well. You get this all covered with your sauce and all mixed up, pop it in the oven, 275 degrees. It's going to take a couple hours. You're going to take it out every 15-20 minutes and stir it. After a couple of times of stirring and cooking, you can combine pans. Let it get a little deeper so you can get 4 or 5 pans in your oven. It's kind of like the loaves and the fishes. You start out with 1 pan, then it ends up spreading to 2 pans, and then it gets to 3 pans, and then it gets to 4 pans, and 5 pans. By the time you get done, you got pans on top of pans on top of pans. When I mix my cereal together at the beginning, before I coat it with the sauce, I mix everything but the Cheerios. If you put the Cheerios in from the beginning and they get too wet or moist with the sauce, throughout the cooking process they're going to shrink and they're going to be hard and crunchy and they're not going to look right. So I don't put my Cheerios in until about 2/3 of the way through the baking process. Even though you're adding them later, when you stir them into the mix, they're going to pick up enough seasoning from all the Chex mix and nuts, and they'll blend right in as far as flavor goes. Each time you pull it out and stir it, don't hesitate to add a little more seasoning salt. You can even add a little more Worcestershire sauce if it's drying up good. The more flavor, the better. If you want to play a little with the seasonings, you can make your own personal changes. Onion salt, celery salt, garlic, these are all things that you could blend in according to your own particular tastes. Have some fun with it. I kind of messed up once many years ago and I accidentally picked up a box of flavored cereal. I think it might have been Cheerios that were sweetened. And I ended up using them because I had already mixed them in with a mix. And it was obviously a mistake. But there's an idea that you could make a sweetened version of this, which would be very interesting. Kind of a flavored, sweetened Chex Mix concoction. What we're going to do now is we're going to make a little special batch, side batch. We're going to take a smaller pan and we're going to put some of the mix into the smaller pan. And then we're going to turn it into a spicy batch. We're going to add some paprika and some Frank's hot sauce and give it a little kick, as Emerald would say. Bam! I try to make this probably 2 alarm. 1 alarm hasn't got quite enough kick, but I don't want to go for 3, 4, or 5 because A lot of people just won't eat it when it's that hot. I like Frank's hot sauce. You can use your own particular choice if you have one you like better. Sriracha sauce or different brands of hot sauces. It's all personal preference. A lot of times I make references to Emeril Lagasse. I think it's kind of funny. You'd think he grew up in New York City with all the fine restaurants and things like that. He actually was born and brought up in a mill town like Fitchburg in Massachusetts. I don't know if it was Fitchburg, but one of those small, low-income mill towns.